result of your own failure to make yourself aware of the MRA's activities, you have placed the Redevelopment Authority in an emergency situation. You should avoid pressing the panic button and smearing good people. So here we've got Henry Reynolds and Albert McGinnis still continuing the fight. Babe Rohr, remember, the Unitarians had tried to get Babe Rohr fired from the Redevelopment Authority. The NAACP had tried to get Babe Rohr fired from the Redevelopment Authority. But now he just walks up and quits. In solidarity with Albert McGinnis and fight Henry Reynolds, even though Babe Rohr supported Henry Reynolds in 1961, in 1963 he turns on him and supports McGinnis.
So Babe Rohr is the racist?
Yeah. Babe Rohr is the alderman from South Madison, and he's on the Redevelopment Authority.
Right.
At least up until today.
I can't wait to see this mini-series.
For a brief period, Norm Anderson is the chairman of the Redevelopment Authority. And then Henry Reynolds, I think, Henry Reynolds was a really good politician. So he's got to come up with a really impressive appointment to make up for the fact that Albert McGinnis has just trashed him. He appoints Philip Falk. Philip Falk was the very respected superintendent of the public schools who had just retired. There are two problems with it. So everyone says, wow, Philip Falk, and Philip Falk gets elected chairman. I mean, everyone goes, wow, great appointment, Philip Falk, superintendent. There are two problems with this. One, Philip Falk knows nothing about urban renewal. And this is a policy-making oversight body that you should know something. When the staff brings you an idea, you should have some basis to know whether or not, to evaluate whether or not it's a good idea or a bad idea. Philip Falk, he's a smart guy, but he has no basis, no background in urban renewal. The bigger problem, and I don't think anybody realized this at the time, was that when Philip Falk was a student at the University of Wisconsin in the early 1920s, he, along with Walter Frautschi and Porter Butts and Frederick March, joined the interfraternity Ku Klux Klan Society. Now, he was not a member of the Ku Klux Klan, but he was a member of an honorary fraternity that named itself after the Ku Klux Klan. So now we've got in charge of relocating people, Italians and Jews and blacks from the bush, a guy who thought it was okay to join a fraternity named after the Ku Klux Klan. Again, this is something I don't think people even knew at the time. I don't think anyone was aware that 40 years before this, Philip Falk had been in the Klan fraternity. But in looking at the way the Redevelopment Authority would administer things over the next couple of years, it certainly is something that we have to take into account and be aware of.
Why would they not know that?
Because,
I mean, I know all kinds of shit about people I went to school with.
yeah, but okay.
Because there's Greenhams in that photo, because there's all kinds of people that were involved in those marches back in the 20s, and it wasn't something that was out of the ordinary at the time. Now people look at it, and it's bizarre. Philip Falk is the only guy in that list of people that still has stuff named after him.
School. Because...
Porter Butts Gallery.
Yeah, it's gone.
There's stuff.
No, Porter, it's not. It's gone.
They changed that?
They changed that. They took Frederick March's name off the play circle. Yeah, Philip Falk. They should rename the play circle after a first-generation Italian-American born in Kenosha who was the best actor of his generation, turned down 2 scholarships to come to the University of Wisconsin, and would go on, Daniel J. Travanti. No, yeah.
Yeah, didn't they just have some controversy?
Oh, yeah, there's a huge deal. Yeah.
Take down all these
Yeah.
from the university
Right.
because these guys were involved.
Right. But 50 years ago, people were oblivious. Because, I mean, there were...
I feel like they might not have been oblivious, but maybe they didn't, maybe it didn't matter so much.
I honestly don't think anyone was aware.
Only one of us was alive then, so like, I'll defer to you.
I don't think in 1962 anybody was really conscious that...
Are you talking about middle-class white people? Because
I'm saying that in 1962, I don't think anybody in Madison was conscious that famous people had been, that there had been an interfraternity at the University of Wisconsin named after the Ku Klux Klan.
Honestly, again, I think you mean middle-class white people. Like, I really think you mean middle-class white people when you say that. Because I guarantee you that black people in Madison who went to the university, who guaranteed were not many of them, man, that's a fraternity named after the Ku Klux Klan.
You know, but it didn't exist in the 1960s. It existed in the 1920s.
Right, but like, I've seen the yearbooks with the pictures of them.
Yeah, because this is a
And
different.
it's not like nobody ever talked about it.
This is a different age. I don't think people wear, you know, well, I'll try and find somebody old enough to ask.
And I'm not gonna die on that.
By the 1970s, we were talking about it, not this specific, but we were talking about
Okay.
racial issues in Madison because we all fancied ourselves as such good white liberals.
Mhm.
When in fact, of course, we weren't,
Yeah.
but we thought we were.
Yeah.
In the 60s, I mean, I showed up in March of '72. And as I look back at the 60s, I was kind of surprised at what I saw in Madison.
I will try and get it definitive. I'll see what I can find out. I don't think people in 1962 were cognizant of what had happened. And maybe I'm talking just about middle-class white people, but the people who would have,
I mean, people who were making decisions,
Yeah.
obviously.
yeah.
Quick question.
Yeah,
In relation to caffeine talk?
no. No. Okay, so now we're going to get into the general neighborhood renewal plan and the implications for that. Because it had been controversial when it was approved. It was only approved 12 to 10. And remember, this is what the university needs this plan to go through in order to get the $9 million to buy the land, to build the dorms and the new chemistry building and the other projects in that area.
At this point, has the bush been all taken down now, everything torn down?
By, in calendar year 62, they take down 122 out of 268 structures. By the end of 63, they're almost all gone.
And then, do they talk about where these people went? Because obviously they haven't relocated in Madison because they haven't found places.
Well, that's the ongoing problem. I mean, some of them,
Do what they do now, double up.
yeah, move to South Madison, move out to Truax,
families.
wait for the public. I mean, that's the ongoing problem, is where are these people going?
Pretty similar to the debates we have now.
Yeah. Yeah. Although, one of the lessons of the whole episode is that we did learn the mistakes we made and we fixed things. When we get to the South Madison project, a couple years after this, the city will do things differently than it did in the Triangle. When we get to Allied Drive, when did we do that, Tom? 2000?
15 years ago.
When we get to Allied Drive, there was a absolute sea change in the way the CDA related to the neighborhood compared to the way the redevelopment authority related to the neighborhood.
And Stuart, that was part of a national movement to learn from those mistakes.
Yeah.
And so the Uniform Relocation Act passed after this, because it was happening not just here, but everywhere that urban renewal was taking place. So you're by law barred from getting federal funding to do renewal unless you have a relocation plan and then execute it.
So, in early 1963, the council approves seeking this federal money to write the General Neighborhood Renewal Plan. That bottom headline is not at all accurate. They did not erase the fear, ease the fears of the neighborhood. When the council voted to go ahead with this project, it didn't end the debate, it started the debate. And we get a group that is dedicated to fighting this. There's an attorney named Lowell Thronson who calls a meeting of something he calls the Citizens Watchdog Committee. And he talks about the redevelopment authority as vultures, and they're out there to seize your property. And there's a massive force ready to come in with the bulldozers. And Don Hovde, who's the president of the Board of Realtors, is talking about bulldozers coming in and clearing all the acreage. And they prepare to fight the MRA. And the way they do that is with a piece of campaign literature that they called the pink sheet. It was on sort of light red paper and was filled with inaccuracies. It was filled with all these scare tactics and outright misrepresentations, and they distributed it in the districts of aldermen who supported urban renewal and where Albert McGinnis was running strong. Because, in an odd coincidence, Don Hovde, president of the Board of Realtors, is the treasurer of Henry Reynolds' Political Action Committee, it's got the Citizens for Better Government. So Don Hovde is Henry Reynolds' campaign treasurer of his Political Action Committee, and he's one of the leaders of this group trying to kill the Urban Renewal Project, which Henry Reynolds supports. So they're like attacking the redevelopment program, but not attacking Henry Reynolds, attacking Albert McGinnis and all the aldermen who support it. When the election is held, the Cap Times is doing its best to remind people that Henry Reynolds did support what they're attacking. The election is a slam dunk for Henry Reynolds. He beats Albert McGinnis, and several pro-urban renewal aldermen are defeated, including one of the members of the Redevelopment Authority. So now we've got a backlash against urban renewal. The people that set out to politically damage the supporters of urban renewal have won. At the very next council meeting, the council realizes that there is a political groundswell against urban renewal that has gone past the triangle. Because, and this is another really critically important component, the people on the triangle had no political capital and no economic capital. So they really couldn't fight back. But these people who had property in and around the university, people like Don Hovde, people from the realtors, they had the political capital, they had economic capital, they had political smarts, they knew how to fight back. And the council sees that there's this sea change in urban renewal, so they disavow, they rescind their approval of the General Neighborhood Renewal Plan. This is going to cost the university $9 million, because without that urban renewal study, they don't get the federal funds. So Henry Reynolds calls their bluff. He says, okay, that's a terrible idea, rescinding the thing, but if you do it, I'm not going to veto it. You're on your own. He calls the council's bluff, and the council realizes that they don't want to be responsible for losing $9 million of federal funds, so they reverse themselves and continue with the study. Now another group comes up. This is called the Madison Homeowners Association. This is the group that a woman named Fran Ramika is the head. She's a really smart woman. She's an analyst, and she's like their research person and their spokesperson, and they are going for a referendum. They want a referendum that no urban renewal project can go forward unless 51% of the people living in the district support it. Now that's obviously a way to kill all urban renewal programs. What they do, even though they don't, and Fran Ramika says that urban renewal represents the will of the middle-class planner who plays with the city like a child plays with his toys. They're planning on this referendum, and even though they don't represent or have any shared interest with the people from the Triangle, they use the emotional impact of the people from the Triangle to support what they're doing. This group's interest is only economic. The Triangle people lost their houses. These people, their interest is, I don't want to say only, but it's primarily economic. So what the Madison Homeowners Association people do is they go down the Triangle and have a hanging party. That's Leo Cooper. Leo Cooper is one of the aldermen who just got elected, beating an incumbent who was on the Redevelopment Authority. Leo Cooper is appointed to the Redevelopment Authority. Leo Cooper, a member of the Madison Redevelopment Authority, is at a party where they are hanging an effigy of the Redevelopment Authority, and he's looking on approvingly. The treasurer of the Madison Homeowners Association was Mrs. Ellsworth Swenson. Ellsworth Swenson was the alderman who in 1968 Paul Soglin would be to get elected to the city council. So we've got an aldermanic wife as the treasurer of this group. We've got a member of the Redevelopment Authority cheering on the lynching of an effigy of his own agency. That strikes me as a problem. You know, and this is this is part of an overall attack on redevelopment that includes the east side. Here we see Williamson Street. I want to say, is this going to be Schley and
right by Paul.
down here? Okay, so this is the Admiral's area. This is Schley and Dewey Court, arguably substandard housing, but this is the redevelopment authority, the redevelopment study that they want to do on the east side. And the council supports this. A bunch of people from the Homeowners Association, none of whom live in the area, come and try and get it defeated, but the council supports it. The Redevelopment Authority, the Homeowners Association keep attacking it. We're getting hundreds of people coming to meetings. And this is another thing that impressed me in reviewing the decade as a whole, is the level of citizen activism. 300 people coming to a meeting, 400 people coming to a meeting. There was a point where there was a public hearing regarding whether or not they're going to have a referendum for the auditorium in 1960. 1,000 people came to a 6-hour public hearing in the auditorium basement of the Central High. The city of Madison had 126,000 people back then. We've got twice that now. That would be today as if you could fill the Overture Center for a 6-hour public hearing. It's incomprehensible. It's unfathomable. But here we've got 300 people, 400 people, 500 people coming to sit at meetings because they believe that they made a difference. They believe that if you went to a meeting and found out about something and got involved, it would affect things. And we're going to see tonight and next week the role of citizen participation, the role of Fran Ramika and the Madison Homeowners Association. What we're about to see in terms of the writing of the Fair Housing Ordinance, the role of citizen involvement is staggering. The other thing I forgot to do last week was give you a stretch break. People need a stretch break. Now's your stretch break, or we can just keep talking. You know what I mean?
Stu, a comment and a question. One on Leo Cooper.
Yeah.
Leo Cooper was what you would consider, what we considered back in the day, a conservative democratic leader in the city.
Yes.
He was.
He was, let me say, he was a switchman on the railroad.
Yeah,
He was a working class, he was a
Yeah.
switchman on the railroad, and it would turn out to be fairly progressive.
yes.
And he would run for mayor in, I want to say, in 71, 73.
Yeah, 71, the first
Yeah,
time Paul
yeah,
ran,
yeah.
and Leo Cooper came in second.
Yeah.
Primary.
Yeah, Leo was a solid guy.
Yeah.
I think this business on the redevelopment authority was a little hinky, but yeah, Leo
Yeah.
was like a Jackson Democrat. He was a scoop Jackson Democrat.
Yeah.
To put it in
well
context,
phrased.
he was, yeah.
Yeah, my question
Yeah.
is, did anybody, I mean, that lynching scene
Yeah.
is shocking today. Did
Yeah.
it, you know, I mean, I look at that and I'm horrified.
Yeah.
Was anybody horrified then?
Apparently not. No. No.
See,
I mean, they didn't see, again, it's so hard to put ourselves in the mind of people 50 years ago. I mean, there's a level of consciousness and awareness of racial issues and gender issues that people just did not have at the time. And I find no outrage in the contemporaneous accounts. We got these 300 people coming to another attack, and Fran Ramika and the Homeowners Association just beat up and beat up and beat up on the homeowner, on the redevelopment authority, and finally the alderman from the area says, okay, let's not do a full program, let's do rehab, renovation, serious building inspection, code enforcement, and this is the first, we now see an example of public backlash against urban renewal resulting in a reduction in what the program might have been. There might have been a more ambitious urban renewal program for Williamson Street had it not been for the backlash created, or the opposition created by the Homeowners Association. I don't know that necessarily, but it's quite likely. In January of '63, and again, one of the subtexts of the entire urban renewal program is race. Race and renewal are going to overlap. In January, President Kennedy issued an executive order requiring that all urban renewal agencies add a prohibition on discrimination on the basis of race, color, creed, or national origin. So the redevelopment authority puts this in its project plan for South Madison, leaving us to ask the question, why wasn't it in before the president issued the executive order? Why was the redevelopment authority not ensuring non-discrimination until the president said to do so? That headline, the top headline, is a bit more alarming than it might have really been. And this is an example of how the redevelopment authority could sometimes be trapped in an